Hey there, thanks for tuning into Duckbricks. I'm Chris and welcome back to another LEGO Dreamzzz Summer 2024 review. Today, we'll be checking out Logan the Mighty Panda, a small but sturdy warrior who is a pretty unique concept for a LEGO set, sporting a ton of new pieces to boot. Let's jump in right now. This is set number 71480, Logan the Mighty Panda. Retailing for $30 or 30 euros, it comes with 342 pieces, 2 minifigures, although one is hiding inside the panda there, and that comes in at a price per part ratio of around 8.8 cents, which on paper seems like pretty good value. Like every other Dream set, you can actually reconfigure this into multiple different configurations where, if you take a look at the instruction manual, you start off with almost like a Hulkified version of Logan, which I find is a really interesting concept where, as you can see, it's kind of just supposed to be him but as a super big brick-built figure, but then you can choose to turn it into a couple of different options, either a more humanoid version of the panda or something that is four-legged. Now, there aren't actually that many leftover pieces included to facilitate this transformation, and because the transformation is probably one of the weakest out of any of the Dream sets, it basically just barely transforms the panda itself, whether you want it to be two-legged or four-legged, and then you just mount the cannon on the top versus on the side. There only are just a few pieces left over to make that happen. Here's a look at that alternate build, but for now, let's take a look at the main thing and go from there. So this is what you get for your $30. It is basically just a large-scale buildable panda, and it almost kind of reminds me of a Hulkbuster style build, especially because of the dome. Let's start off by taking a look at the minifigures, and in terms of figures, you obviously get Logan, who is sporting a brand new outfit for this particular season of the show, much like all of the other main protagonists. Now, they've actually done something a little bit more special with this one, and they've actually given him dual molded legs, which I think were kind of a necessity when crafting this character, because as you can see on the printing, he's wearing these yellow shorts which show the blue skin underneath, so it totally makes sense to actually give him the printed legs. Strangely enough, him in minifigure form, but also in blue skin form, has never appeared in the series yet, so this is maybe a bit of a sneak peek as to something that's coming, and he has a more friendly face with yellow eyes versus a much more angrier red-eyed face, and I have to wonder, maybe that's a hint towards maybe him losing control or something, because this almost looks like a villainous face, not a heroic face, but I think it's certainly interesting. You get a couple of different options with him, and you do have a reference to the LEGO Airport monorail right there as well, with the M on the torso, hinting at some vintage LEGO stuff. Of course, you get Dogan as well. Dogan is the evil version of Logan because this theme's plotline is focused on them fighting the more evil versions of themselves. Dogan here is based off of an evil version of Logan's Season 1 outfit, and you can see what the printing looks like underneath. It is pretty much just a one-to-one replica of the outfit that he wore in the early seasons, but just with an evil Neverwitch twist. And you can see on the back there, he's got the 3 scratches on the back, as well as an alternate face with the one yellow eye, one blue, and then more of a smiling and laughing face on the back here. I'm certainly very excited to see these evil versions of the characters in action. We've only so far gotten Mateo in the TV show, because at the time of this recording, part 2 of Season 2 is not out yet. Unfortunately, this figure does suffer from something that a lot of the figures in this wave do suffer from, and this is going to appear more and more often as we look at some of the other figures, but clearly designs were intended to be dual molded. Like, this is clearly supposed to be a dual molded black and then a slightly pink side here, but for whatever reason they've just maybe ran out of budget and didn't really get a chance to dual mold it, meaning that unfortunately this figure is a little bit lacking, especially when stood right next to the counterpart, who kind of has a very similar design of wearing shorts on the legs, but the main character version of Logan is actually dual molded as he should be, making Dogan feel a little bit incomplete. I do realize and recognize that it is a little bit strange to be asking for dual molding, especially when it is pretty rare and kind of a treat to get it to begin with for an original LEGO theme, but when a character is so clearly designed to be dual molded, but just doesn't have it, I gotta call it out, and that is not the most egregious example in this wave. Moving on from that, we do have the inclusion of the quote-unquote collectible in this set, which is, of course, a shrunken down version of one of the Dream Realms. This one appears to be almost like a pirate-inspired realm, not really a place that we visited that much in the show yet, but we have seen it in the background in some sorts. It also does come with a dual-molded Raven in black and transparent pink, which does feature in every single one of the sets, which is pretty nice because it is a nice new piece to get. But what's even cooler for me as a new piece is this brand new glass dome piece, which is a slightly modified version of the standard glass dome piece, which has a bit more of kind of a ridge design on the top to make it suggest a more slightly higher level of detail in the way they've actually done this glass tempering. It's a nice little improvement to the older piece, and one that makes for a pretty fun collectible. Moving on to the actual build of the set though, let's take a look at Logan the Mighty Panda. Thankfully, there is a room for Logan inside with his hockey stick, which you can clip onto here, but let's lower the canopy here and take a look at the Panda itself. This is a really interesting design, and I actually kind of like it as a buildable character. It feels like a more animalistic version of something that we would get from Marvel in terms of a Hulkbuster, as I mentioned, but one thing that they've done to really increase the detail on here is incorporate a brand new element for LEGO Dreamzzz Season 2 Part 2 sets, which is this shoulder panel here, which I'm sure is going to pop up in buildable figures here and there. You'll also see it on the Mateo Z-Blob Night Mech, but here it's used as just olive green shoulder armor, which is a really useful color to get. The front arms are mounted on ratchet joints, which is basically to facilitate the four-legged animalistic mode, but as you can see, he has a bamboo-inspired hammer and stud shooter, which is pretty cool. One of the first times I believe that we've gotten this in this shade of green, although I might be forgetting something, but it is a really nice color scheme to get, and I do like how you have the Technic pins on the back here, which allow you to actually fire the multi-stud shooter. You can see the logo that Logan wears on the shirt right there, and then finally, just not much else you can do with it. Good coloration of the blue claws here, and overall, no head articulation, because obviously it is just a Hulkbuster style dome, but it is what it is, and I actually kind of like the proportions of this. I feel like the proportions are actually quite close to an actual Panda. It really does feel like the source material it's meant to be, and it does also introduce a brand new element in the form of these gigantic LEGO Technic macaroni pieces, which I'm sure are going to be very useful for future action figure inspired builds. Really, the only downside is because of the way it's done, you don't really have that much articulation in the legs. It's pretty limited, and purposefully so you can't have it topple backwards, but I'm not expecting a ton of articulation out of a set like this anyway. It does mean you can't really put it in a walking pose because the foot is permanently constrained to be pretty much at one angle, but if you get pretty lucky or creative with it, I think you can actually get it to balance on one leg, and there you go, that works out pretty well. Otherwise, not much else I have to say about the build. The bamboo armor is a nice touch and definitely adds on to that almost kind of Asian-inspired feel for it, which is, I guess, something that does make sense given the Panda, and overall, it's a fun little build. $30 for this build does end up feeling maybe a little high, but I'm not really sure, to be honest, why I'm saying that, because if you look at the price per part ratio and the fact that it does include two different figures, one with dual molding as well as a brand new animal, and several new molds in the form of the large-scale macaroni piece being used 4 times, the 2 new shoulder armor molds, the new dome mold, as well as a new print for the Hulkbuster and style of a bubble canopy here, it does feel like you're getting value for money, but I think the thing is that this is kind of a smaller style of build. Like, it's not that big to play around with, and I definitely feel like 25 would have been really nice for this, but honestly, I don't think it's necessarily fair to ask for that much more, because just on paper and looking at what it includes, it does feel like pretty good value to me. Overall, that's all I have to say for this set, and this has been Logan the Mighty Panda. And with that, we have summed up our individual review of this LEGO Dream set. Let me know in the comments what you think, and be sure to like and subscribe to the official Duck Bricks YouTube channel. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you again very soon. Bye for now.